Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, maybe we're going to get started. So, if you would put your countries in the chat so we get a sense of, now, if you're all from the Bay Area, never mind, we know where you're from, but we should have a lot of people here from other countries. So, please do put it in the chat so we can get a little acquainted. And I'm going to ask again that people put their cameras on so we can see you and get to meet you in other than a black box. So would appreciate it. Ty, Thea, Marcus, Jose, etc. Um, welcome to our global class briefing. Talk about the Global Life Sciences Healthcare Entrepreneurship course that we teach here at UCSF. And then our special guest tonight is Clare Lou, who's an entrepreneur. And Claire, I know you can say something so you show up on everyone's screen. Um,
Hey,
yeah, say something, Claire, wave, whatever.
hey everyone.
Great. And she's going to talk about how she started a company for the first time out of Berkeley and a very prestigious institute at UC Berkeley, and was given $1 million to get started. So we're going to save Claire for a little bit later. And first tell you about the class. Claire is an alum of the class, so she'll be able to speak to that as well. Um, so welcome everybody, and I can't see the chat, but Inder Tekkar, our program manager. Inder, you want to say hello?
Oh, hey, how everyone's doing? Sorry, answering a couple of direct chat messages, so I got a little distracted there. Hi, everybody. How you guys doing?
Okay, all right, great. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this class, and for those of you who are not from the Bay Area, tell you who UCSF is because we're not always well known, even though we are one of the major scientific and medical institutions in the United States and the world. Sorry, I didn't need to do that. We actually started biotech, which is kind of amazing. 1976, when nobody was doing biotech, we founded a company called Genentech, and it was a UCSF faculty member who teamed up with one of the early venture capitalists. And together they started on UCSF Science and venture capital money, Genentech. So we have a proud history of being in this field of startups. UCSF has 7 Nobel laureates, so our science is absolutely top tier. And we also have a major hospital system ranked very high in the United States and in California for sure. So we have a clinical group that is unparalleled. And globally, we're ranked number 16, which is amazing because we have no undergraduates, we have no business school, no engineering school, all kinds of things that Stanford or Berkeley had. We're just life science and healthcare, and we're still ranked number 16 against all universities globally. So we are really a special place, and I'm very pleased that I can bring this course to the world from UCSF. So what is this course all about? This is our value proposition. For those of you who might know that business term is like, what value are we bringing? And I was told by my students in one cohort a few years ago that this is more than a course, it's really a community. And I said, really? I hadn't thought of it that way. And they said, yeah, it's just the connections we make, the way you're facilitating the interactions. We're really a community. And I grabbed that theme and I've tried to keep that community together. And we're getting bigger every year. And we do have alumni events. So we are an entrepreneurship community. It's targeted to professionals, although postdocs, PhDs are welcome to join us, of course. It's about science and medicine startups, and it's teaching people the business essentials. And the people who teach it are not academics at all. They are Silicon Valley practitioners. So for those of you who are not from this part of the world, Silicon Valley is the #1 ranked startup ecosystem in the world. And we're so fortunate to be here and to be able to have connections with all these incredible people who are actually doing it. So again, it's a community. In other ways, we're different is we are purely life sciences and healthcare focused. So there are other entrepreneurship courses out there, but they're not life sciences and healthcare. And we really are a unique industry. So there are things that we need to focus on that a tech startup never has to think about, like insurance reimbursement or FDA. And we make sure we cover all those things. It's a very high touch class, even though it's virtual. So I try very hard to keep the lectures interactive. We run chats throughout the lectures. I stop the speakers and say, um, Yuri, tell me what your question is. I know I picked on you, Yuri, because your name's right in front of me. Hi. Yeah, would you ask your question? I'll say, and then Yuri will actually ask the question of the speaker. And so it's very participative. And besides that, we have small groups separate from the main lectures. So again, it's a way to really interact with people. Something that people take away from this is not just the content, but what it's like to be in Silicon Valley. We have a very unique culture here, and it's a culture that has been very successful in starting companies. And it's you have to have that mindset to understand what it takes to do it. And by being in this class, you will pick that up. You will understand. You will see it from the guest lecturers. You'll see it in the small groups. You'll see it talking to us. It's just a different way to operate. And everyone wishes they had this mindset, but it doesn't come easily. And we've had 3 generations of entrepreneurs that have baked it into our culture. Do we have anyone from Argentina here? If so, could you like raise your hand or something? And I'm
Yes, it's
asking.
Stephanie. I'm here.
Oh, Carolina,
Hi, nice to
hi.
meet you.
Yeah,
Nice to
you
see you.
too. So I'm about to go to Argentina on a Fulbright award, and I'll be working with an Argentine university that Maria Carolina is representing. So I'm very excited about that. And just having a conversation today with the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires. See, we're talking about exactly about this mindset culture thing that I'm mentioning. So it comes up every place in the world, and so it's so important, and you will get it from this class. Um, and then we have a global alumni network, and we have worked hard to keep this going. We now have over 600 alumni, and it's a network. And as you will learn, networking is everything in getting things done in business. And this alumni network works, and I know people have made great connections through it. And we have events and virtual hangouts, and then an in-person event at UCSF in January. So these are ways in which we are a different kind of course. And by the way, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and Inder will tell me when there's something to answer, and I'm happy to stop and answer your question. So why should you consider this class? First of all, if you have an idea, you need to know if it can be a business. So it's not enough to say, I've got awesome science or an awesome clinical idea, and I want to get funded and make a company out of it. It's not the way it works. So you need to learn the business components that are critical to getting investment. And since in life sciences and healthcare, we need money. It's not, we can't sit in a room and code and come up with an AI app. We need to get funded by external investors. And so you need to understand whether your idea could become something that's fundable. And then business decisions make the difference between success and failure. So if you end up just deciding something because it seems right, but then you didn't understand how that one decision can change your entire trajectory and maybe not in a good way, then you are really putting yourself at risk. And we will teach you what to look for and how the business decisions you make, even from the earliest days, drive success. You can also get a feel for your startup mentality. So not everybody should be an entrepreneur. There are some people who are much happier being in a lab or being in a bank or being in, some stable, larger organization, and knowing what the day is going to look like every day when they walk in and pretty much knowing what to do. That's not a startup mentality. And we will help you understand whether you've got that mentality. And it's fine to say, no, this really, I didn't know I needed to be, that flexible or that into change or that, able to take risks. And I feel much more comfortable being back in my lab. That's fine. You just need to find out before you waste a lot of time trying a startup. Also, so important to learn how to interest investors. So investors are essential for our kinds of companies, and they have very specific needs. And you need to understand what their needs are so that you can give them a solution to those needs so that they'll invest in you. So that's another aspect of the class. You'll just pick up this startup culture by listening and participating. You'll be in the global network and you'll build connections in Silicon Valley. One of my favorite examples is I have a Mexican entrepreneur who was in the course a couple of cohorts ago. And he decided he really wanted to take his research out of the university and start a company. And in Mexico, there's really no ecosystem for him to do that. So through the class, he made connections here and in San Diego. And he ended up in an accelerator in San Francisco. And through that, he met other people and he met investors. And then he got incorporated by a major Silicon Valley law firm, which had more connections, and so on. He built his network so that he now speaks like a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. And he's a guy, he's not even from Mexico City. He's from a smaller city in Mexico and didn't have any exposure to any of this. So we were really able to help him. And that's what we can do for any of you who also would like to be connected. We hear this a lot. This course has been life-changing. And so it's very satisfying to know that we've enabled people to contemplate a different path and to have ideas about how to follow that path if they want to. So, Srivan was in one of our early cohorts, and he's stayed in industry that really opened his eyes. So before I go through the format, any questions in the chat from what we've talked about, or anyone want to raise their hand?
Stephanie, we do have two questions, but you're gonna answer throughout your presentation. One is, can non-UCSF people join, and also what is the time for is it open for Singapore folks?
Oh, great. So absolutely non-UCSF. This is not meant to be a class for UCSF particularly. We have a different course for UCSF people, although UCSF's welcome. But this is a course for people around the world. And so absolutely don't think that you're in any way restricted. And by the way, there are no requirements to apply. Yeah, you don't apply, you just sign up and you're in. The second one was, time zone. Sure, that's a consideration because we have people from Europe, we have people from Singapore, we have people from other parts of Asia and so on. And so we figured out a way to handle that, which is 50% of the time, the classes are at 5 p.m. this time, which is good for Asia. 50% of the time they're at 9 a.m., which is not good for Asia, but good for Europe. And we record everything. So if you don't want to get up in the middle of the night, you can just watch the recording afterwards. But I have to tell you, there are people who do get up in the middle of the night or stay up because they so want to be live at the course, to have that ability to ask questions and be interactive. But you're covered, and this has worked well. And we've had a lot of Singaporeans in our last couple of cohorts. So did I answer that question? For whose question was that?
That was for Gary.
Yeah. Okay. Gary, did that answer that to your satisfaction?
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Okay, great. By the way, we did have a guy from A-Star who got up in the middle of the night and to be live at the, the European time zone kinds of classes. So he just wanted to be there. Okay, please keep putting questions in the chat. It's great. So what's the format? There are 2 hours of lectures a week, and that goes on for 10 weeks. That's the core of the class. You really want to get to the lectures. If you can't do anything else, if you're very limited in time, I have to tell you that we've had some clinical people in, and I still remember some MD leaving his patient on the table to join the class. And I told him, look, don't do that. Go back to the patient and you'll catch up. But people really like to be there. We also have these small groups. So there are two types of small groups. One is by life science sector. So there's a group for therapeutics, a group for medical devices and med tech, a group for diagnostics, and a group for digital health, which will now include AI. And so they all meet with mentors from those sectors and have a discussion group. And that they're pretty small. They're 10 to 20 people. That's just how many people show up. And they're really great opportunity to ask you very specific questions and just get a sense of, gee, we covered FDA, but I'm a diagnostic, so what applies to me? Well, the diagnostic mentor can explain that. So that's the idea there, is to break it down and be more specific. It's also great networking, by the way. And then there's a separate small group called Entrepreneurial War Stories, which is led by an entrepreneur. And he brings in his network of entrepreneurs to just tell their stories about how they got started and what it was like, and were they able to scale, and what were their issues, and so on. And that is a very popular group, and because people love to hear these stories. So you can come to all or some. There's no requirement any of this stuff, and it's really your choice. So that's the format of the groups and the lectures. Then we have networking events during the class. We'll have a hangout after some of the classes, so you can meet other people and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. We have alumni events, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I hold office hours. So you have a chance for one-on-one mentoring. So lots of touch points here. And this is Regina from one of our earlier cohorts. She really appreciated the speakers. Breadth, experience, and passion of all the speakers was absolutely best in class. Their sincere willingness for you to succeed came through in every session. And that's something we do here in Silicon Valley, is it's called pay it forward. People who've been successful want to help the next people coming behind them. So they love doing this. And most of them make themselves accessible. They give you, some of them want you to have their email. Some of them say, just get in touch through Stephanie. Whatever it is, they are willing to engage. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the content now. What are you going to learn? We start off with opportunity analysis. That is, how do you know your idea is a business? If you don't know that, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and effort doing something that maybe nobody cares about. So let's start by telling you what you need to do to figure that out. And Darren Cook, who is an angel investor, is also at UC Berkeley running the entrepreneurship program, the life science entrepreneurship program, and is on the committees for Skydeck, which is the accelerator. He is all over this topic and is a great resource. I talk about how you make money. So if you can't figure out how to make money in something, and making money may not be product revenue, it may be partnering, it may be getting the right investors in, but they want to know what's your game plan here, and so you have to figure that out in the beginning, and that's what I will talk about in this topic. Some of you may have heard of Steve Blank. He's a globally known person who taught at, and still teaches at Stanford and taught at Berkeley. But he's a serial entrepreneur, started 8 companies, and he popularized the idea of customer discovery, which is your potential customers. What are their needs? What are their problems? Um, do you have something that could be a solution to their problems? But you better start out by finding out what the problems are. And then you need to figure out if what you think you're working on is going to be something they need. So that we're going to teach you how to do that. And that is the essential start for any company. Teresa Toller is one of my favorite people for team building. Teresa just joined a very hot startup that was funded with $1 billion. $1 billion was the starting investment, called Zyra. It's an anti-aging company. But before that, and she's building the team there. So she's got, she's got a lot of funding that she can recruit with, and she is an expert team builder. Before she went to Zyra, she worked for a number of different venture capitalists, building out teams for them, for their portfolio companies. So she has done it from pure startup to later stage companies. She is incredibly knowledgeable and a great person. So really fun lecture. Todd Esker has the difficult task of making intellectual property interesting. And he does it. And not only interesting, but it's understandable. When Todd teaches, it's a very arcane field and very detailed. And he makes it all sort of fly quickly by, give you enough of the basic concepts that you know what you don't know, and how to figure out what to do. So I love having Todd do this IP lecture. Ilan Irony is a former FDA deputy director, and he is currently at Johnson & Johnson as a global regulatory leader. He's the guy who talks about FDA and regulatory. He knows it from both sides. He's been on the government side, and he's now in a pharma side, and he's really knowledgeable on both of those. Angels, who are, I guess you call them business angels in some other cultures. Angels are individual investors who put money into companies, and they have very different investing needs than a venture capitalist. They'll also go in earlier than a venture capitalist. So if you're doing a startup, you may want to just start with talking to angels and seeing if they're interested in investing. And this year we have two different angel groups represented: life science angels and band of angels. So you will get different perspectives on how this all works. And then venture capital. So again, 2 different perspectives. Cami Samuels spent something like 24 years in venture at top firms, Venrock and Versant. And she is going to explain how venture capital works and what VCs need from their portfolio. Tim Luker is with Eli Lilly Ventures, and he's different. He's a corporate venture capitalist, and the money that they put into companies is strategic. So if it's something Lilly is interested in for maybe being part of their pipeline at some point, or an area they want to learn about, you might look to a guy like Tim to pitch your ideas. So it's going to be a very interesting lecture. And then partnering, 2 very experienced people. Leslie Stolz is a vice president of J&J Innovation. She's early innovation partnering. She talks all over the world at bio conferences and lots of other places. And she can tell you exactly how partnering works. And Pat Sinatra is on the other side. She is a consultant to biotech companies. So when a biotech wants to partner, they might hire Pat to help them understand who are the connections, how do we talk to them, how do we get meetings, and she'll do all that. And maybe she'll be meeting with Leslie, and they know each other well. So again, an important source of funding for biotech companies. the US healthcare system. Oh my gosh, we're so complicated here, right? Even those of us who live here don't really understand it. I don't. And these two men, Eyal Gurian and Ali Samian, are people who know it well. So Eyal was the head of uh, at an insurer, Anthem, changed its name to Elevance. He was a vice president of care transformation. So he would look at new ideas that came in, new startups, and see if they were something that Anthem was interested in. Ali was on sort of the other side. He's a reimbursement expert, insurance reimbursement, which is what every startup here needs to figure out. Because if your product will never be reimbursed by insurance, no one's going to be interested in it. I shouldn't say no one, not enough people to make it a profitable company. So, so they have two different perspectives and are a great team to talk about this. And then we have our own set of entrepreneur stories in the class. So in addition to the special group of entrepreneur stories, we have three entrepreneurs. We have Nick Hertz, who's on his second company, and is Montera. They just raised a Series A. It's a neuroscience company. Alice Zhang is doing an AI drug discovery company out of Stanford. And she talks about her pathway, and that's what I want. I want the stories. I tell them, don't talk about what your company's doing. Don't touch the science. I want to hear how'd you get to where you are, and that's something that Claire's going to talk about today when we talk with her. And then Adam Freund at ARDA is a cell depletion company. They just raised $43 million in their first venture capital round. And it's about aging. So, hot topics throughout, and we're going to hear and learn from them. Russ Ernst is from Boston, and he was very enthusiastic, blown away by the quality of people gathered in one place. The access you get is more than you could hope to do in years of networking, and you get it all in a 10-week span. And Russ was a great networker. So that's an important perspective. It's all about the network. We've talked about the mentor-led discussion groups. Again, the mentors are serial entrepreneurs, early stage CEOs, investors, business development people, consultants, and so on. And here's the Entrepreneurial War Stories group. Brian Feth is a CEO, co-founder of UC Biosciences, and he brings in his network. So if you go to all these things, all the lectures and all the war stories, you will hear from 6 entrepreneurs during the 10 weeks. So why take this class? You're working on a startup. Maybe you want to benchmark on Silicon Valley. How do they do things there? Am I doing it right? Am I missing anything? We've had people literally say that. I think I know what I'm doing, but I just want to benchmark on the people who are the top. You absorb the culture. You can figure out whether you'll fit with the startup world and what your interest is in early stage ventures. That would be a good reason to take it, and then to join our network, our global network. We talked about who takes the course, many different kinds of people, which is what makes it such an interesting group. And that will be, they're part of the network that you're in. This is Cecilia Sui from Hong Kong. She runs part of the ecosystem there. Recommended, she said, anyone who wants to understand Silicon Valley, take it. She was the one who took a nap at 11, got up at 1 a.m., and came to class at 2 a.m. So yay, Cecilia. This is where we've been, International Alumni Network, and we have an active community. I'm going to skip by this time. We have an alumni event live at UCSF and during JP Morgan Healthcare Week, which is a well-known time when everybody from around the world in healthcare business descends on San Francisco for lots of meetings. And so we have our own meeting then, and you get a chance to come to UCSF and meet your colleagues from other cohorts. And then this is what it looks like. Starting on October 1, it's 10 weeks. You should expect 3 to 6 hours per week if you do the lectures and do some of the reading and maybe go to a small group. We alternate times. Everything's live and recorded. We do have a certificate. I'll mention that. The fee is $1,800, and Inder Tekar is our best contact. This is what the certificate looks like. You will have to come to a certain percentage of classes so that you get a certificate. If you don't want a certificate, it doesn't matter. You can come to whatever you want, but we make that available for people who are dedicated to the class. And we have a registration deadline for this cohort of September 3. So if this sounds interesting to you, I urge you take a look at the website, more information. You can write to me or to Inder, and we would love to see people from all over join what's going to be another great cohort. So, any questions?
Stephanie, we have a question about an early bird discount. Any, or is that over now?
Yeah, no, it's not something we're able to do. But this is just to put it in perspective. This class, if it were being held at Stanford or Berkeley, would be about $5,000 or $6,000. So you already have a discount, huge. We don't have an executive education department, so we just do things differently. Any other questions? All right, because I want to introduce our speaker. So I'm going to stop sharing as soon as I introduce Claire. Claire, you're still there, right? I can't see everybody in the room.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay. So Claire is the CEO and co-founder of Sift Biosciences and a global class alum. I think I'm going to stop the share while I talk about her. Great, I can now see you. And again, I ask people with their cameras off to please put them on. And so Claire has thank you for those of you who did. Claire has a PhD from UC Berkeley, and she then joined a very prestigious institute. For those of you who know who Jennifer Doudna is, CRISPR. This is an institute that Jennifer started called IGI, Genomics Institute. And so she was in a program in this institute and has done very well. And I'm going to ask you to start, Claire, when I turn it over to you in a minute, and talk about your background and how you came to the U.S. and your family. Claire is an entrepreneur. She walked out of IGI with $1 million, and she started a company. And she's pretty new at it still, so she's a new founder, but really excited about what she's doing. So, Claire, why don't you go ahead and take over and tell us tell us where you came from and how you ended up doing this.
Yeah, totally. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for inviting me to this class. I really missed this course, and nice to meet all of you virtually. So Claire here, and I originally came from China. So I moved here by myself for high school, and then I stayed in California since then. So I did my undergrad at Berkeley, decided to stay at Berkeley for a PhD because I just love Berkeley so much. And after PhD, I stayed 1 more year to do this entrepreneur fellowship program. And I would say I've always wanted to do startup, and that was one of the reasons I decided to pursue a PhD at Berkeley with a PI that I highly respect. And I also wanted to stay in the Bay Area because, Silicon Valley, as Stephanie pointed out earlier, has this really rich entrepreneur culture. So yeah, that's a little bit of backstory about.
Well, I want you to start back further. Tell us about your grandmother
Oh, yes.
in China. Yeah.
So my late grandmother, my mom's mom, she herself is an entrepreneur. She took over this dyeing water pumping machine business in her 20s, and she worked all the way to her 80s. And I think growing up, watching her like going to the factory and following her just really inspired me to be someone like her one day. So I think that just subconsciously really pushed me towards this kind of entrepreneur journey. And yeah, I think that like often people ask like, why do you want to do startup? I think it's just something that I've always have like in my mind that this is my path and I should pursue this.
So was she from Beijing?
She's from the south, near Hangzhou, Shanghai area.
Small village. That's what I wanted you to say. This is not, she was already in an entrepreneurial center and there are lots of women entrepreneurs around. What year are we talking about? What decade is this in?
Let's see, I mean, 80s, and let's go back like 60 years. So
Yeah.
very
No
early,
women,
no
right?
women.
No.
Yeah, and she came from a very small village countryside, and she had no training or no background in doing business. But then she happened to have this opportunity, and she decided to just take over. And I think brewing company from like almost dying to like top companies in China for like at a certain period of time is super super inspiring.
Yeah, so that's your heritage. I mean, it is amazing, right? So, and to say more about when you came for high school, you came alone, right? You didn't have family members with you. Did you speak English?
Not really.
No. So how did you learn and where'd you end up going and why'd you go there?
I didn't speak much English because I didn't go to any international school when I was in China. And I initially learned by just trying to memorize the dictionary and watching like American shows. I think Vampire Diaries was one of my favorite show back then when I was a kid. And then when I came to the US, I went to Santa Cruz, which is a relatively small town in California. I think it's like 2 hours away from like the Berkeley SF Bay Area. And then I stayed with an American family where like I basically had no opportunities to speak Chinese. And a lot of my friends at school were mostly like local folks who don't know how to speak Chinese. So I think the first year was really hard because I really had to learn, and I think just kind of forced me to really pick up the language. And then I used to use like a recording to kind of record every single class because I couldn't really understand, and then just replay it and write down the notes. And I think over time it just became easier and easier, and that happened like I think slowly over the course of the years.
Yeah. So I mean, when I had no idea that Claire was not from the U.S. and I had to ask her, where are you from? Are you from here? And she said, no, I'm from China. And I said, you don't have any Chinese accent. And this is why, right? Because you couldn't speak Chinese. So anyway, very entrepreneurial and brave to pick up and come over here with nobody and as a high school student and don't speak the language. So I just wanted people to understand that what an entrepreneur is made of. So anyway, let's go back to what you want to talk about. I just want to make sure people heard that bit. Yeah. So how did you end up working on whatever you're working on, and what's it like to be an entrepreneur?
I would say I'll ask the answer the second question first. It's like riding a roller coaster. Every single day is different and there's ups and downs. And I think a lot of time things are really out of your control. So I learned to really focus on things that are within my control and let other stuff just to, try all you can. And sometimes you just can't really control the situation. And then regarding what I'm building and how I got there, so I've been very interested in the microbiome space, how microbes interact with human health, and that was one of the reasons I decided to pivot, well, like change my major halfway through into microbiology when I was an undergrad student, and then decided to apply for a PhD program in microbiology at Berkeley to have a better understanding of how microbes interact with human. And then throughout the journey, I've gotten a lot deeper understanding of like microbes and how powerful certain microbial species could be when it comes to human health. And so when I joined this entrepreneurial fellowship program at IGI, I had this 1 year opportunity to fully evaluate like how can I take what I learned during my PhD and make into something that like people actually want. So I actually started with thinking about like a companion diagnostic tool using microbiome, using stool. And I talked to over 100 folks during the course of the time. And this class, like, Steve Blank's talking to people, like asking the right questions. And there are certain like diagnostic seminar talks where the mentor session where I had the opportunity to ask questions, like just doing additional customer interviews before I realized that this is not the right space for me to pursue. So then we pivoted about 6 months into the program into something making therapeutics. The core of the platform is very similar, but it's slightly tweaking it for different, I would say, use case. And I think after I did the pivot, I still talk to a lot of people trying to make sure this is the right idea to pursue. And it's just surprising to see how different the conversations became. And that's when we're like, okay, this is the path that we want to go forward with.
So people were interested in this new path. And so you did how many interviews total?
I think over 100. I think we were trying to do like at least 2 to 3 per day. Sometimes we have like more meetings throughout the day, just to really trying to understand like what's the problem and what are the unmet needs and does our technology really work here?
Yeah. Yeah. So you did it exactly right. So what are you still doing interviews or are you done?
Yes, we're still doing interviews. I mean, you never stop talking to people because I think at every single stage there are different questions, and I think talking to people is the at least for me it's the best way to learn. So like now we're more focusing on talking to key opinion leaders in the disease indications that we're interested in. So trying to better understand like how can we really map this out. And the other thing is just thinking about commercialization strategy. Like even though we're still really early, but like one of the courses that I took was about the U.S. healthcare system, and I think that was like one of the most helpful course because it's the first time that I learned that even for a therapeutics company, when you have to think about your commercialization strategy early, and to really learn the unmet need besides talking to like physicians, payers are also super important to talk to. So this is something that I've never thought about, and that just really opened up my mind.
Yeah, it is surprising. And I remember a vignette from one of our lecturers one year about somebody who designed a medical device and there was an existing CPT code, which is an insurance code. And so he figured, that they'd be able to use the code, which is much easier to get reimbursement. But then some engineers said, if we need to move this hole from over here to over here, like an inch. And they said, oh yeah, that makes sense. And they did it. And that one decision killed their use of the insurance code. So they had to start all over again getting insurance reimbursement. So who would know, right? It's just like it was an engineering decision, but that impacted commercialization. And so, just having your antenna up about, yeah, we got to figure this out in the beginning and see what we're doing, right? That's and that lecture gives you good insights into it. Yeah.
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 I mean, it's a very sophisticated system, so I have to learn more as we get closer. But it's just good to have like a general idea of like what we're heading towards is super helpful.
Yeah. So what were some of the things you liked best about the course and that were most helpful to you as you went on to do this?
I think one, just having like a really general understanding of like what it takes to build a biotech startup. So like as a lot of you here see, there are like a lot of different topics that got covered throughout the course. And it's very different from like a tech space building a SaaS tool. And I think besides the US healthcare system talk, I really like the war story, like the entrepreneur war story. And I think one of the sessions I attended was run by Justin Cow, and I think Brian was there too.
Mhm.
And they talked a lot about like from partnerships all the way to how to think about startups and how to talk to VC. And this is something that like you don't just typically get from talking to someone for like 10, 15 minutes. and they get really deep into this like startup world, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, yeah, it's very cool. And any questions that you guys, who wants to ask Claire something? Anyone who's here, she's open for questions. We'll keep chatting while you think of your questions. You want to put something in the chat. Um, so what do you like about the path you've taken, and what's really hard?
I think what I like about it is every single day is different, and every single day I have to learn something new. It makes PhD a lot easier than like thinking back. I think PhD is like pretty straightforward. Like my goal is just to do good research, publish papers, and at the time it was hard. But now thinking back, like science become just one sector of my life. Like there's so many other stuff that I have to consider and learn. So I think it makes it exciting, but also difficult at the same time because I just don't have as much time as I wish to really learn these knowledge in depth. So I learned to really um, find mentors, advisors to bring on board to really help me learn quickly and help me fill the gap that I don't have the knowledge of or don't have time to work on.
Yeah, great. We have a couple of questions. Arthur, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Yeah. So you said early on, you talked to like hundreds of people, like while you were trying to figure out like what path you wanted to pursue. I was wondering what types of people did you talk to? Did you talk to potential customers? Did you talk to other scientists or like who did you talk to and how did you get access to those people?
Yeah, I mean, so for the companion diagnostic idea, I started with talking to VCs. So I asked people for introduction, and I also just cold emailed people like on LinkedIn. And one of the and I think through talking to VC, just like as a student, they're really open to just give you feedback. And I learned that this may not be a great idea unless I could come up with like a very strong story. So then I went on to talk to more scientists in the microbiome space, and also trying to learn about like why don't people like companion diagnostic in general. So that's more like talking to people in the diagnostic space or consultants. Again, I think I just did a general like LinkedIn outreach, cold emailing, and it's pretty effective. And also just trying to use my network and see like who have mutual connections, who can potentially intro me to. So that's how I kind of eventually get to talk to more. And sometimes when you talk to like people, I end my meeting with like, can you intro me to someone else who might be able to help me with this? And that's been really helpful because often you get like 1 to 2 connection and just kind of really expand your network.
Great technique. Yeah. Gary, do you want to ask your question? I think you're on your way to work. Gary?
Hi. My question is, how do you find co-founders? And usually we are told to find people who are different, complement us. But then how do you work with people who actually think differently? Yeah.
I mean, finding a co-founder is another whole journey that I think itself is pretty challenging. And there are programs like Berkeley has co-founder dating programs run by Darren, and where you can meet different people, and it's kind of like a dating in some way where you really want to see if you work well with this person, besides, having complementary skill sets. So for myself, I met a lot of different people. I talked to them and trying to see like, do we work well as a team? Can they bring something that I don't have? And I think after searching for someone probably for like close to, I would say 6 month plus, I was talking to this friend about tech, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for this kind of person. Do you know anyone in your network? And then she recommended someone, and then I hired her as a consultant, and we worked really well as a team. And it just happened like after months of searching for someone, you find someone that work really well with you, and you find someone that's like extremely passionate about the project. Like they don't need to take any salary and they can work for free like with you crazy for an insane amount of hour. Like these are the dedication that I was looking for, and they have the complementary skill sets that I was looking for. And that's when I know like this is the right person that I want to co-found the company with. So it was not an easy journey to find the person. And I think a lot of founders also struggle with finding good co-founders.
We hear that kind of thing that you just said a bunch, which is, there's a founder of another company, Genevity, and when she was looking for a co-founder, they walked in San Francisco every day for like 2 months together and just talked about everything. And at the end of that, she's like, "Yeah, I want you. I know who you are," and in lots of different ways. They met each other's families and so on. So it really is, it's not a random thing. You take somebody off LinkedIn. It's right. It's what you did. Sounds like it works well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to build trusts in that person and just dedication to the project that you're in, like fully committed. And I think these two are the most important feature when you're looking for someone.
Yeah. That's great. Janet, hi, Janet. I'll take the first one of your two questions because we don't have much time left. Go ahead.
Sure. The first question is, Claire, first of all, thank you so much, you and Stephanie. I mean, this is just a really remarkable opportunity to hear you. Could you tell us a little bit more about your IGI program and also then this program and how they really transformed, how they kind of work together to transform your journey so far? Because they both seem so critical.
And Janet is an alum of the global class, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Ready to learn again.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay, Claire. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
mean, IGI Entrepreneur Fellowship Program give me like 1 year, like 100% of my time dedicated to explore whether this idea would work or not. I think it's a very rare opportunity. It's like a great time, a great timeline, and you have like a little bit salary and research funding to really test the idea. And then they introduce us to this course. So that's how I learned about this course, how I met Stephanie. And then I got to take these like amazing classes, and they also connected us to other people in the network. So I think overall, just like expanding the network, because you can never have enough people in the space. Like you always want to know more folks, because entrepreneur journey is not novel. Like everyone, if you talk to enough people, at least someone will have like at least gone through your problem. So I think these two programs go really nice side by side.
Thank you.
Beanie wants to know, what is IGI? What's the IGI program?
Oh, Innovative Genomic Institute program. This one is called Women in Enterprising Science. But I think after this year, they're no longer running it. But there are like other entrepreneur fellowship program through the Berkeley and UCSF ecosystem.
Yeah, great. Okay, Claire, thank you for sharing all that. And any other questions, general questions about the class or comments anyone wants to make? While we're waiting to see if there are any questions, I'm going to say hi to Kevin Flager, my colleague from Perth. So I know, Kevin, you've sat in on a bunch of those lectures. Do you have any comments you'd like to make, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an amazing program, and there are programs, and we run programs in Australia, but the difference is we don't have the access to the amazing people that you can bring to this program. And each of the lectures, it's somebody who's just raised $1 million, a million, 100 million,
Billion.
or a billion, or it's just the numbers keep getting bigger, Stephanie. So we just don't have access to those sorts of people in our ecosystem. So that's the difference. And it's an incredible program.
Thanks. And I'm going to call on one of our mentors, Marco Smith. Marco, what's your perspective? You've been mentoring in one of the sector forums.
Yeah, I think it's great to have such a diverse perspective. I think here, once you are in the US and particularly in the Bay Area, it can become a bit of an echo chamber. So I think it's very nice to have such different perspectives and different questions. And it's great to see the energy and the community that builds. So it's a really unique program. I welcome it very much the engagement as well.
Thank you. And you're going to be mentoring again this year.
Correct.
Excellent. Yeah. I always enjoy Marco's sessions. I sit in on all these sessions and I learn all the time from people like Marco. It's great. So, all right, we are just about at time. Is there anyone, Julian, I don't know if you're there because your camera's not on, if you wanted to just say hello and tell people who you are, but you may have gone for a beer at this point. Julian Eisen is a new mentor that we've discovered who also is raising a fairly sizable venture capital fund as an angel investor and is did one of our entrepreneur hangouts at UCSF, which is an in-person thing we do every month or two. So, and nice to have him in the network. And yeah, so I want to thank everybody for coming tonight or this morning if you're in Singapore, and for joining and listening and learning. And we hope some of you will be interested in looking into the course more, signing up for the course. We always expect to have a rich cohort and look forward to having some of you join us. So I'll stick around for a few minutes, but anyway, this is sort of officially the end. So thank you again for coming, and get in touch if you have questions you'd like answered.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks.